Hello, welcome. Today I'm going to show you how I use the Nokia Mimic in order to make it a little easier to make games that fit the specs for the Nokia Game Jam in Unity. First, you'll want to import the package file, and you can import all the files if like that. Alright, once all the files download get imported, you'll have this error come up, or warning. You can pretty much ignore that, it's just fixing a scene. You're also going to want to change the resolution. You can do it in the editor, at least just for the sake of watching the game in play mode with the right resolution, changing it to 175 to 100 ratio aspect. You could do the 84 by 48, but it actually comes out looking a little funky. And then going to project settings and going into player, changing the resolution for the Windows, Mac, Linux settings. I have been using 504 by 288, and then changing that also in the WebGL setting. One other thing to change to, I could have left that window open, but back to the project settings, going to the tags and layers and adding 2 user layers, layer 6 being screen and layer 7 being screen invisible. That way the colliders will interact in the first method that I show you. Close that out. So the first method is in this one scene called Collider Model Scene. It uses a grid of 2-dimensional trigger colliders that can interact with 2D rigid body colliders, although it can also work with 2D or 3D rigid colliders if that's something that you're trying to pull off, and that interact with the rigid body colliders that have this screen visibility component added to the rigid body colliders. Just to show you, if I press play here, there's going to be a little collider that's dropping through the screen. I'm going to pause it. If we go to the sample falling collider, you'll see that it's got a 2D box collider, a rigid body 2D, and this screen visibility component attached to it. Just to give an example, adding a um, 2D object there, adding a polygon collider and a rigid body, and again that screen visibility component. I'm gonna make this hexagon a whole bunch bigger. And if we start the scene this time, you'll see that hexagon shows up, the resolution isn't the greatest because 84 by 48 resolution isn't the greatest. If you'll see the shape a little better if we blow it up a little more even. See, it's got that hexagonal shape to it. Taking a look at the screen visibility script, you'll see that you can either access the visible method that accepts a Boolean and turn the object on or off from the screen, or you can also simply enable or disable the component. It makes for a pretty good flashing effect. Now the other method I set up is in the other scene constrained position model. This one takes a little more savvy to work. Once you work it though, you've got a little more option as far as like animating assets or something like that. You'll have to make sure that the assets that you're using line up pixel to pixel. To give you an example, I'm gonna import these files here. I'm gonna get rid of the extrude edges, and then if we look really closely, well, we'll apply that change. If you look really closely, you'll see that these are really basic shapes that are pixelated. And another couple of changes you'll want to make, there's changing the filter mode for all these sprites that we're going to use to point no filter. That way they show up nice and crisp in the scene, and just for the sanity of size, changing the pixels per unit to 1. So if we go to the main, we'll apply those changes, go to the main camera, and if I drop one of these sprites in, it's going to be nice and straight. Now it'll show up in the scene. You'll want to change the color so that it shows up like the phone display. Just take the hexadecimal value from that sample falling pixel and change the sprite to that color. There you go. Looks like it's on a phone screen, just like that. With the constrained position model, instead of changing a collider, if we add the component, the resolution position control to the sprite, what it does is that each frame that the scene runs, it will change the sprite position to line up with the grid of the screen. I will show you that you can use animation so that those sprites can be a little more lively. Okay, so I've got the animation set up. Just two sprites going back and forth. And if I start the scene, you'll notice that the sprite again adjusts its position so it's in line with the grid of the screen, and you've got the two sprites going back and forth. A little more precision in this system to do some artful things with sprites. The constrained position model also has a component for the main camera, the camera position controller. So like the resolution position control script, the camera position controller on each end of the update will move the camera position if it has been moving to work within the grid system. That way it doesn't keep any sprites out of line if you're trying to use camera movement. One other thing that I want to show is the audio system. You can add different tracks to the music player and add different sound files for the sound effects as well. When I open up Visual Studio, you'll see that the actual audio system has some methods in it. So again, if you're playing a song and then have a sound effect go off, the song will stop, the volume on the song will go down, the volume for the sound effect will turn on, and then when the sound effect is finished playing, the song will continue playing. So you can use the play song method with the number in the set of the song track, and if you want the song to repeat or if you want it to just play one time through. And then when you want to play the sound effect, you can either call it by the number in the array, or you can call it by the name of the sound effect. Hopefully that is helpful for you all, and we'll see if I add any more to this as we go along. Got a few months before the next Nokia Game Jam, I'm sure.